Why do bad things happen to good people? Why do rich people continue to become richer and good people sometimes become poorer? These are questions that arise in our minds from time to time, especially when we look outward and we see that things are not the way that we might like them to be. There are three kind of levels that we can take with this question. The first is just the external appearances of things and studying them and studying the causes for various things to occur. So, from the external perspective, when we look outward, we sometimes find that there is this appearance of bad things happening to good people, good things happening for bad people, and things like this. But when we start to really examine this external world, it starts to break down actually in a few different ways. The first one is when we ask this question, why do bad things happen to good people? We are taking a very limited view. First, of bad things, and second, about good people. We have to make a radical shift in the way that we view things to be at peace with a world where there are these types of appearances. So, to make this shift, we need to actually radically inspect our own beliefs about good and bad. And so, first, good things, bad things. What exactly does that mean? When we start to inspect this, we start to find that what a good thing is and what a bad thing is, it's really in relation to our own ideas about our own minds. What we believe will make ourselves happy, and then we project that out to other people, and we believe certain things about our own circumstances, and then we believe certain things about other people's circumstances. And we think that if it's true for me, it's true for you. We don't even realize we're doing this most of the time. One example of this is with good things that we might believe will be happening to us. And we think that, oh, if I only have, for example, $1 million more, or $1 billion, or some amazing amount of money, everything will be better. Everything will be calmer. Our hearts will be at ease. Our minds will be at rest. And so then, when we see other people having these types of circumstances, good things, we think, more riches, for example, we then think, that person must be happy. And then we think, oh, I'm not having those circumstances. For example, say my friend wins the lottery and they don't want to give me any of their winnings. So now they have a large sum of money, and I feel sad that I do not have this large sum of money, because I believe that if I only had this sum of money, I would feel better. I would feel more calm. I'd feel more at peace. I'd feel more connected. I would have more joy in my life. I'd be able to do more of the things I'd like to do. However, this isn't actually necessarily the case. There are many affluent people, rich people. There are also those that gain great wealth through the lottery, and they don't actually become happier. It becomes a burden, actually, in their minds. It's something to worry about. I now, for example, have, let's just say, won the lottery, and now I have a large sum of money. Now I might worry about how I invest that money. I might worry about keeping hold of that amount for some time. Maybe I even have more strife in my personal life because now there's a lot of people that might be requesting money from me, and I feel trapped, concerned because some of these people might have wronged me in the past. Maybe I don't want to give it to them, and maybe now I feel guilt. There are many, many examples of this actually in the world. These good circumstances that while we think, oh yes, this is just, of course, good, it doesn't bring any additional happiness. And as we know, as practitioners of meditation, as practitioners of philosophy possibly, we know that death is coming for us all. And when we notice this, we also notice that no matter how much money, no matter how much wealth we have, it will not be able to follow us when we pass. Maybe we will have a more comfortable mattress when we pass. But in the end, we still will have to endure whatever kind of suffering we experience at that time. And this is not something that is separate from any one of us. All of us will have to endure that. All of us will also be totally trapped in that world, I guess. We will live in that reality until we no longer are living. We don't get to choose, no matter how good we have it. So we look at somebody who, external from us, we notice, oh, good things are happening for them, they're not happening for me. We can start to inspect that actually these good things that we think are happening, we don't know how good they are for them. There are plenty of examples of this in my personal circle. And I'm sure for you as well. When we read the news, for example, we hear stories about very affluent people. Most of these affluent people do not seem to be much happier than the rest of us. Actually, in many ways, they seem to be striving and worrying about things a lot more than the rest of us, and actually more trapped in this paradigm of fame, of renown, of money, of concern. And they can't take a break. They can't relax. They can't rest. That doesn't sound very happy at all. So when we project outward this, good things happening to bad people, for example. Why did good things happen to bad people for bad people? First, we can look at the good things and say, I don't know if they're any more happy. Then we start to look at what a bad person is. What do we believe a bad person is? And oftentimes, as we inspect this, first of all, there's a few different ways of inspecting it. The first is to recognize that our own understanding of a bad person is actually very incomplete. It usually is just based on what we've heard someone has done. We don't know whether or not the person is necessarily in their heart of hearts intending to be bad. We can't really know that, but we have judged that things that others do, we've noticed maybe they have harmed others, or they have, in some way harmed the world, maybe not other humans, but maybe other creatures or the wider world. And so we think, oh, that's a very bad person, and maybe they might be prone to volatile emotions such as anger or resentment. We see those types of emotions. And so again, we feel that this is a bad person. Maybe they don't have good relationships. Maybe they don't seem to have happy relationships either. And this is actually the first hint of what we can start to explore. Bad people, quote unquote, what we think is a bad person isn't a happy person. A bad person is actually a sad person, an anxious person, a worried person. Because when we judge others, what we oftentimes judge as bad is oftentimes related to interpersonal relationships. Oh, that person isn't very loving. That person is self-centered, for example. But being self-centered and not having good relationships is actually a cause and condition for unhappiness, because this person isn't widely beloved by their in their relationships. They're not widely appreciated by people. They might even have a lot of negativity. And even if, for example, some of us read the news and we find people that, oh, but they surround themselves with people that praise them and all this. But we all know that even if you surround a lot of people around you that are praising you, they are also, if you are being self-serving, you're surrounding yourself with other self-serving people too. And so these self-serving people also are not necessarily treating you well behind your back. They might have their own interests and actually might not be truly your ally. And so you find that these individuals suffer great deals of mistrust. They worry and don't trust others around them. They're always shaking up people around them and worrying about the allegiance of those around them. And again, all of this happens to be just a natural process of destroying your relationships by being, self-centered and concerned about other people. And when we start to inspect all this, we realize that this is a very miserable existence. When you start to harm others, either at first accidentally, but then you're maybe shamed or judged for that. But then eventually, if this perpetuates itself and isn't corrected, this becomes something that is very, very problematic in one's own life. Their relationships begin to suffer, and so their happiness actually begins to suffer too. So even if this person, right, we have these good things, for example, money is one example, and these bad people, for example, those that are doing things that are harmful to others, we find that actually, even if these people are given a lot more money, they are not going to solve that unhappiness, as the unhappiness has nothing to do with money. The unhappiness has to do with relationships. It has to do with their causes and conditions that are creating more and more negative relationships around them. And this drives them into more and more internal isolation, more and more stress, and more disturbances of mind. And actually, when we look at this, we can actually begin to feel very sad and empathetic for these other people. And in addition to that, we can begin to see what, in the Buddhist context, we talk about when we talk about karma. This is karma. And really, you can see it playing out directly. If you harm another person, people are going to be wary of you. And then that doesn't make you feel very good. even if you put on a strong face and you put on a lot of armor and you still are a bully to others, this still doesn't make you feel happy. And this is a universal thing for everybody. What makes us feel happiest is when we're loved and when we are in a good community full of love around us, of a harmony, a place of peace, where we're able to relax, where we trust other people. But when we're harming others, we're actually creating causes for other people not to trust us, for us to have more problems around us. And so we find more sadness and despair. And furthermore, even if we have other good circumstances happening to us, for example, material wealth or yummy food or more clothes, none of that actually helps us feel better. Because what really only makes us feel better is whether or not we're in a loving environment and it's harmonious. And we're not going to be able to be like that and feel safe and secure and relaxed when we are creating these causes of disharmony, distrust, anger, and everything around us. So when we look outward, we can start to see, oh, maybe on both sides, the good things that we think are happening to bad people are not quite as good as we might think they are, because they don't really solve their problem. And then also, the badness that they experience is this really basic mistake of trying to be happier by focusing on themselves and striving for their own happiness, but because they don't know how to give and love others, they're actually creating more and more unhappiness in their lives. And so in that way, it's sort of a tragic case. In that way, we see, oh, they're not really getting more happiness. They're not able to get more good in the way that they might actually want it deep down, which is harmony, peace, relaxation, feeling like everything is good around them. That's not happening for them. So that's, again, on the external framework of looking at good things for bad people. And then we can also do it for bad things for good people. So we might find that loss, for example, occurs, or sickness, right? These things happen, and they are very transient and very cyclical. So we might find that these days we might feel a little bit more on edge monetarily, economically, financially. And we also might be more worried about health because of the world around us. We might be more concerned about what goes into our bodies and pollution and these types of things. And then also worried about how we're going to afford things and all of that. And then we look outside ourselves or in our own lives and we find sometimes bad things just happen to us out of nowhere, even though we are maybe trying to be more loving to others. Maybe we have a practice of love and care for others, and we know people that also do, and we find that they still get very sick, they still pass on, they still have loss, financial loss, and things like that. So how can we again look outside and say, is that bad? First, that's what we're doing, is that we're terming that bad. And this is actually the thing that we can really undermine, and it's really not helpful to us when we start to say that this event is bad. And in other religious traditions, and I know that for some this is actually very frustrating, but there's this term blessing in disguise. So, this is a bad thing. There's a blessing in disguise, for example. Well, when it comes to sickness and death, it's very difficult to recognize it as a blessing in disguise. However, one way that we can view it, and especially for those that have a practice, is that this is just a transient moment. And actually, sickness and death is not the end of anything, but a dreamlike life. We've lived a dreamlike life on Earth. And when we have bad things happen to us, they're just existing in this dreamlike life. And if we're really, really focused outside of ourselves to help others, we might actually have more of a direct experience for this feeling of dreamlike life. That this is very dreamlike. That actually, this isn't my body. Right? This is a temporary guest house. This is a temporary body. Eventually, I'm going to release this body. This body is only for the benefit of others, for example. If this body is only for the benefit of others, and I'm working for others, and I'm, doing meditation for others, and I'm focused towards others, and that's what it is to be a good person, for example, then if bad things happen, I don't take that personally. It doesn't have to do with me, any sort of semblance of a me, I suppose. It maybe has to do with this body, right? Maybe this body, if I'm lose a lot of money, maybe this body has to miss some meals. Maybe this body doesn't live in the same place that it did. Maybe not in a luxurious place. Or maybe this body has to move a lot more. Maybe it has to do a lot more physical labor. Maybe there's a lot more demands on it. However, if, again, my mind is focused outward, and I am a good person, for example, then as I'm working outward, I can integrate all of this with, this is just demands on my body, but this is not really my body. This is the body for everyone else. This is everyone else's body. That's why it's here. It's here to help everyone. So as harsh things happen to it, that's okay. If there's pain and sickness, it's me taking it on, for example, taking it on for others. So we can start to frame things in this way, and we can frame it outwardly too. That's actually what other people are doing, especially good people. Good people are selfless people. Good people are trying their best to do things for others. So if they're trying their best to do things for others, they can endure more hardship. And the more hardship that they can endure actually increases their beneficent attitude as well as their spiritual strength. When we get sick, for example, spiritual people get sick, and if we're in the mind of using it as a practice, taking whatever occurs onto the path, then when sickness comes, we can possibly through a mindful practice remember that we're taking this on for the world. That this is actually something that we are using so that others don't have to suffer. Others don't have to suffer like this. And when we start to do that in our lives with the negative things that happen, when we mindfully think, I'm enduring this suffering, I'm enduring this hardship, so that other people don't have to. And even if that's not really what's happening, I'm going to use it like that. I'm going to aspire like that. May this hardship, this obstacle, may this be something that can benefit others. May this be something that removes the suffering from others. So all of a sudden, when we do that, we notice, wow, our goodness, our beneficence, and also our spiritual power increases. So that then if there's another big obstacle that comes, it's much easier for us to be happy. And this actually creates happiness. Because when we are confident and secure and our heart is open when we're in these obstacles, then other people around us will also not be so afraid. They also will feel a lot more secure. And so we can be an anchor for them, if you will. We can be a raft in the ocean, the scary ocean for them. And what's beautiful about this is that this increases our happiness and increases our joy because we are loved and we are loving. So unlike the paradigm that we talked about a moment ago with the self-focused person that we normally term bad, by being somebody that we would call good, even if the worst thing was to happen to us, including sickness and death, we don't let it get to us. We use it to benefit others. And in that way, we actually are loved. We feel the radiance of love. And that is joy in our lives. That is joy in our lives. So that's the way that we can enhance our goodness with bad things. But then there's another aspect, which is bad things. Once we start to do that, we become pretty well practiced in it. We then start to look at the badness of these events, these obstacles. And actually, as they unfold, we start to recognize them more as energy, And the reason for this is actually that once we have really started to become more selfless and we think of ourselves as really just here for others, we actually start to feel like we're among others. That rather than being trapped in our bodies and trapped in our own stuff, we actually feel like we have permeated more around us, maybe further out. And we feel like we're now part of other people's hearts, other people's experiences. And in that place, this kind of wider open space of mind, of the selfless mind, we no longer feel separate anymore. And so a lot of our suffering comes from this separateness, this feeling of separation, especially around sickness and death and when we lose somebody. But what's wild is when we really become more selfless, we do not feel this loss as heavily. One of the reasons is because we actually feel the presence of, or the non-separation, the presence non-separation of mind. And that includes even those who have passed on before us. There is no true separation that can be found. And so we start to feel that actually in our hearts, even if someone has passed on that we're very close to. And even when we go through all of the normal human stuff that we go through, all the really turbulent energies that occur, we can get to a place and be stabilized in a heart of connection, even when this person, this being, has passed on, or is very sick, or is distant from us in some way. We actually can feel them in our hearts and feel comforted, actually, in that feeling. So, again, when we start to look at bad things for good people, this badness starts to erode, and this goodness starts to elevate. And rather than feeling like the world is harmful to good people, we actually realize that no matter what happens externally, that this goodness, as long as we're habituating it continuously and practicing it, this goodness is always self-fulfilling. It's always benefiting those around itself and also one's own mind and happiness and joy. That there's not a lot that's required externally, actually. And that gets us to this next stage. So that's how we kind of work. We can work with kind of starting to break down some of these ideas that we have about good and bad externally. Then, as we start to get through this and we start to really be stabilized and have more confidence in our practice of becoming more selfless and more loving towards others and not thinking about, and also having confidence in the power of that. And also a disinterest about people that are self-centered or about self-centered behavior, because self-centered behavior doesn't help anything. It doesn't even help the people that are doing it. It doesn't make them happy, for example. And it doesn't bring those around them happiness. It's just looks very ignorant. Rather than so threatening or wrong or upsetting, we realize it's just very ignorant and very sad, actually. And we feel we can feel more empathy and compassion for those that are ensnared by this type of egoic thinking, this very self-centered thinking. But as we become more confident in this, and we can become less concerned about the external world. We no longer have to be so caught up in the present disturbances, really, of the world. Because the present disturbances of the world aren't going to change the benefit of selflessness. And it also doesn't change the negative, causality around ego clinging, around selfish thought. So we start to notice that this is actually something that we don't have to really engage with mentally by getting caught up. We can, of course, engage in it, work with people, love people, engage in the world that way, but we don't need to get worried that things are somehow unjust, because we recognize, they are all causal. That also can increase our compassion. And as it increases our compassion, that we realize that a lot of these people that are bad, for example, that we might have had judgment for, are actually very deeply habituated patterns that are just, they have a very deep habituated patterns that are just off the rails. They're just continuing and continuing and continuing. And they're trapped by that. Their minds are trapped, their hearts are trapped. They're not becoming happier because of them. And so this can also invite us to see that striving externally in terms of trying to benefit myself doesn't bring any value. And so that will allow us to distance ourselves to a degree, more than being so caught up, but allow us to let go of the external display. Oh, it's okay. It's okay that this is occurring. It's okay that all of this is unfolding this way. It is all unfolding in a way that the causes and conditions will bear fruit in all of the different ways. Now, as we do that, we increase our compassion, and we notice, but that means that all of these bad people are going to endure worse and worse and worse mental afflictions. That's true. And we can start to have compassion for them. They can't get out of this. They are trapped in this mind. And we hear about this. People who die alone, people who die very sad. And we experience this loss, right? We experience this disheartened feeling about people that are selfish. I mean, in there's all sorts of popular media things uh, that show us this as well. So in our hearts, as we are engaging in more compassion, we then might be interested in looking inward and then seeing how we have been judgmental. We have created division as well in our judgments, in our thoughts, in our feelings, and how our feelings and thoughts have naturally unfolded because of our past and our pattern and well habituated, but that we might want to begin to obliterate those two. Again, pop them like bubbles. Just release them because they're not very helpful. When we look at, for example, bad people, historically, in our default setting, we judge them harshly and we think, oh, that person deserves bad things to happen to him. Yet when we see that their unhappiness is bad things happening to them, that might make us actually feel quite sad. They are so unhappy, so clinging that they can't escape their unhappiness. And that actually a lot of the reason the world is the way it is because they cannot, because they haven't awoken. They haven't awoken that selflessness is the best possible thing for them. As the only thing that will make them happy. So then we can invite ourselves, oh, but we've been caught up with this too. We've pointed fingers. We've looked at others and said, oh, you're not so good, and preferred ourselves. We all have. We're human beings, after all. And as we start to acknowledge all of this, that will also increase our compassion. It will also increase our wisdom about our own triggers and things that cause us resentment, frustration, judgment. And as we look within and are less concerned and worried about what's happening outside of ourselves so that we can really focus inside, then we can really benefit others by learning about ourselves and releasing also our own types of judgment, which then creates wonderful causes in our life, even more than what we were before, which was selfless, maybe selfless towards our friends, maybe selfless towards those that we considered good, maybe selfless towards those that we considered having a hard time but not bad. But now we'll be able to be selfless towards everyone, without judgment, And as we do that, we can then feel more spiritual power developing, even more understanding developing, more wisdom developing. And that then will get us to this last stage as we've worked towards really cleansing our triggers, cleansing our minds, cleansing our hearts of all of these places where we're harsh towards others in our minds and we haven't let that go yet. By doing all this internal work, eventually we will reach a place where our minds are very clear, very passive, very at peace, and stable. And once we get to this place, we suddenly can recognize that everything in this transient present moment is here. That all of these various intricacies of life, all of the people, all of the beings are all present. They're all present even in this expansive nature of mind and heart. that they and this empty mind, this beautiful, pristine, expansive, peaceful nature of mind that in the Buddhist context we would call bodhicitta or Buddha nature, that this, in other contexts they might call that Christ nature or God or something like this, that actually all of the world, all of creation, all of these good, bad things, good, bad people, all of it is subsumed. And in this subsumed place, there's just peace. There is just love. There is just breath. Mind's nature. Pristine, clear, beautiful. And then it permeates everything, everywhere. And it's luminous. It's aware. There's an awareness in itself. A light, both external, internal, as well as just the fabric of itself, its own nature. And in this experience, there can be the experience of a mystical union, and in the end, a place of total understanding. That all of this good and bad, all of this confusion that we humans do about pointing to good and bad and saying, oh, it's this or that, or I have my preferences and you have your preferences, but we might not agree. All of this, as well as all of the pristine nature, are in union with each other. That all of the suffering, all of the things, the feelings, the sensations, the sickness, the death, the birth, the getting old, the having great gain and great loss, the worries and concerns, as well as the releasing of the worries and concerns, the releasing of our fears, the gaining confidence and selflessness, as well as being gripped by selfishness. All of that is subsumed in this mystical union, in this present, transient, empty space of mind's nature, of Buddha nature, or God nature, or Christ nature, all of that. This is always available, always here, never changing, always the context of everything. This is a difficult thing to see. It's a difficult thing to have confidence in because it takes these steps. It does take time. It takes steps to first, look outward, start to inspect our different judgments, our different ideas about things. Oh, why do these things happen? Oh, and then start to poke holes in them. We must poke holes in them. We must release these types of ideas because they're not really part of nature. They're just part of our society. They're all part of what we would call human nature, but it's not really natural per se. It's part of a construct that is all surrounding a me, a self, and wanting this self to be happy, and thinking that wanting this self to be happy will make happiness. But oftentimes, actually it's not oftentimes, it just is the causal nature. When you want to make yourself happy, it creates causes for unhappiness. And you look to make others happy, it will make you happy too. It will make harmony and joy in your life. So again, first looking out there, then seeing that, bad and good are not really as they seem. Not really as they seem. And then looking inward at these judgments we make and seeing, hey, these are really incomplete. These aren't really taking into consideration what we've learned. We can release those too. And we just release all of these different perspectives. We release our own prejudice completely. Inward, outward. Then finally, we can gain this peaceful realization of union of all of our experience and everyone else's experience. That is all unified into one present context. And that you can't take any one piece out. It's all interdependent on each other. Like like this. It's all interdependent on each other. If we took one place out, I wouldn't be saying these words. You wouldn't have been born. I wouldn't have been born if we took one piece out. It wouldn't have been what it was. It wouldn't be what it is. And so in that way, we can love more vastly, much more vastly, and accept much more radically than we ever thought possible. And again, benefit others continuously in our lives, in our present context, because we know that and we've seen in ourselves, it's very, very hard to see this. It's very, very hard to release our own selves and to live in this real space-like nature. So thank you so much. I wish something in these words will help you in your practice. And if you have any questions, I invite you, please leave some comments, like and subscribe if you haven't already. I don't know. I don't really know what the benefit of that is. I think the benefit is it goes to more people maybe. So if you find it valuable, if not, or if you want to keep it secret for some reason, you don't need to like and subscribe. But thank you again for watching. I truly hope that you find this space-like nature and feel the expansive presence and present. And that you feel that selflessness is the way to go, because I can assure you it very much is. Thank you.